Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Storyline English Motivation. I hope you are having a wonderful day. Today, I want to take you on an unforgettable journey. It is a journey through ancient palaces, golden temples, powerful armies, dangerous betrayals, and one of the most fascinating women in human history. This is not just the story of a queen. This is the story of a woman who stood against the most powerful empire in the world. A woman who spoke many languages. A woman who used her intelligence as her greatest weapon. A woman who loved deeply, fought bravely, and refused to surrender even when the world was falling apart around her. Her name was Cleopatra. Before we begin, if you enjoy learning English through beautiful stories, don't forget to subscribe to Storyline English. Your support helps us create more stories that make learning English enjoyable and inspiring. Now sit back, relax, and let's travel more than 2,000 years into the past. Our story begins in the beautiful city of Alexandria. The year was 69 BC. The morning sun rose over the Mediterranean Sea, painting the sky with shades of gold and orange. Ships from distant lands filled the harbor. Merchants from Greece, Rome, Persia, and Africa walked through crowded streets. Alexandria was one of the greatest cities on earth. People called it the Jewel of Egypt. The city was famous for its magnificent lighthouse, one of the wonders of the ancient world. It was famous for its giant library that contained hundreds of thousands of books and scrolls. Scholars traveled from every corner of the known world to study there. Scientists made discoveries. Philosophers debated ideas. Artists created masterpieces. And in a magnificent royal palace overlooking the sea, a baby girl was born. Nobody knew it then. Nobody could imagine that this child would become one of the most famous women in history. The baby was named Cleopatra. From the very beginning, Cleopatra was different. Most children of royal families spent their days playing games and enjoying luxury. But Cleopatra loved learning. As she grew older, she became curious about everything around her. She wanted to know how the stars moved. She wanted to know why rivers flooded. She wanted to understand different cultures and different people. Whenever teachers entered her room, she greeted them with questions, many questions. Sometimes so many questions that even the teachers became tired. But Cleopatra never became tired of learning. She wanted knowledge, and she wanted more knowledge every single day. Her father was King Ptolemy XII. Although he ruled Egypt, his family was originally Greek. Many years earlier, after the death of the great conqueror Alexander the Great, his generals divided his empire. One of those generals took Egypt. His descendants ruled the country for nearly 300 years. Cleopatra belonged to that family. The Ptolemy family was powerful. They were wealthy, but they were also famous for something else. Conflict. Inside the royal family, brothers fought brothers. Sisters fought sisters. Relatives betrayed relatives. Everyone wanted power. Everyone wanted the throne. The palace was full of secrets, full of ambition, full of danger. As Cleopatra grew older, she learned an important lesson. Being born royal did not guarantee safety. Sometimes the palace was more dangerous than the battlefield. Yet instead of becoming afraid, Cleopatra became stronger. Every challenge pushed her to learn more. Every problem made her sharper. She studied mathematics, she studied astronomy. She studied medicine, she studied philosophy, she studied politics. She learned how governments worked. She learned how armies moved. She learned how leaders inspired people. Most importantly, she learned languages, many languages: Greek, Egyptian, Latin, Hebrew, Arabic, and several others. People were amazed by her abilities. Visitors from foreign lands would arrive speaking their own language. Cleopatra would greet them in that language. They could hardly believe their ears. Most rulers depended on translators. Cleopatra rarely needed one. She spoke directly to people. She listened directly. She understood directly. This made her different from every ruler before her. The people of Egypt noticed. For generations, the Ptolemy rulers had spoken Greek and often ignored Egyptian traditions. But Cleopatra respected Egypt. She learned the Egyptian language. She studied Egyptian religion. She embraced Egyptian culture. The people began to admire her. Many believed she truly cared about them. As the years passed, Egypt faced growing problems. The country was rich. Its farms produced enormous amounts of grain. Its cities generated wealth. Its treasures filled royal vaults. But wealth alone could not protect a nation. Far away, another power was rising: Rome. Rome had once been just a city. Now it was becoming an empire. Roman armies marched across continents. One by one, kingdoms fell. One by one, nations surrendered. Every ruler watched Rome carefully. Some admired Rome, others feared Rome, many feared both. King Ptolemy understood this reality. He tried to stay friendly with Rome. He sent gifts, he paid money, he made promises. But Rome respected strength more than gifts, and Egypt was becoming weaker. When Cleopatra was 18 years old, her father died. Suddenly, everything changed. The young princess became queen. But according to tradition, she could not rule alone. She had to share power with her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII. The boy was only 10 years old. Officially, they ruled together. In reality, Cleopatra quickly became the true leader. She made decisions, she met foreign diplomats, she managed state affairs. She acted like a queen because she was one. Many people admired her confidence. Others hated it, especially the advisors surrounding her brother. These men wanted power. They believed they could control a child king. But they could not control Cleopatra. She was intelligent, independent, strong-willed, and impossible to manipulate. The advisors began whispering against her. They spread rumors. They questioned her decisions. They criticized her leadership. Day after day, month after month, the attacks continued. Eventually, the situation became dangerous. The advisors convinced Ptolemy XIII that Cleopatra was his enemy. The palace became divided. Friends became enemies. Trust disappeared. The conflict grew worse. Finally, Cleopatra was forced to leave Egypt. Imagine that moment. One day you are queen. The next day you are in exile. One day you live in a palace. The next day you are running for your life. Most people would have accepted defeat. Most people would have given up. Cleopatra did neither. She crossed into Syria. There she gathered supporters. She met local leaders. She negotiated alliances. She recruited soldiers. Every day she worked toward one goal: returning home, returning to Egypt, returning to her throne. Meanwhile, events far away were changing the world. Rome was experiencing its own crisis. Two powerful men were fighting for control. One was Pompey, the other was Julius Caesar. Their conflict became a civil war. Armies marched, battles raged. Eventually, Caesar gained the advantage. Pompey fled, and he made a desperate decision. He sailed to Egypt. Pompey hoped the Egyptians would protect him. He was wrong. Ptolemy's advisors wanted Caesar's friendship. To prove their loyalty, they murdered Pompey. They believed Caesar would be pleased. Instead, they made a terrible mistake. When Caesar arrived in Egypt, he was shocked. Pompey had once been his ally, later his enemy, but still a Roman, still a great leader. Caesar believed he deserved a better fate. The murder disgusted him. Suddenly, Egypt found itself facing the attention of the most powerful man in the world, Julius Caesar. At that moment, Cleopatra saw an opportunity. If she could convince Caesar to support her, she could reclaim her throne, but reaching him would be difficult. Her enemies controlled Alexandria. Assassins watched the roads. Guards monitored the city gates. Walking openly into the city would be suicide. Cleopatra needed a bold plan. Fortunately, bold plans were her specialty. One evening, under the cover of darkness, a small boat approached the palace. Inside was Cleopatra, along with a trusted servant. The servant carried a large carpet. The guards inspected the gift and allowed him through. They never imagined what was hidden inside. The servant entered Caesar's chambers. He placed the carpet on the floor, then slowly he unrolled it. Out stepped Cleopatra. Imagine Caesar's surprise. One moment he was expecting a gift. The next moment a queen appeared before him. Not frightened, not nervous, confident, determined, brilliant. Caesar immediately understood something important. This woman was extraordinary. She had risked her life to reach him. That alone demanded respect. The two began talking. Hours passed. Then more hours. Cleopatra explained Egypt's problems. She explained the corruption surrounding her brother. She explained why she deserved to rule. Caesar listened carefully. He was impressed, not simply by her beauty. Many women were beautiful. What impressed him was her intelligence, her confidence, her courage, her ability to think strategically. The meeting changed history. Soon Caesar declared that Cleopatra should be restored as queen. Her enemies were furious. They refused to accept the decision. War erupted. Alexandria became a battlefield. Caesar and Cleopatra found themselves trapped inside the royal palace. Outside, enemy forces surrounded them. Food became scarce. Danger was everywhere. Every day brought new attacks. Every night brought uncertainty. The struggle lasted for months. Sometimes victory seemed impossible. Yet Caesar remained determined. and Cleopatra refused to surrender. Finally, Roman reinforcements arrived. A decisive battle followed. Ptolemy's forces collapsed. The young king attempted to escape across the Nile River. His boat overturned. He drowned. The civil war was over. Cleopatra had won. Once again, she was queen of Egypt. But this victory was only the beginning, because the relationship between Cleopatra and Julius Caesar was growing stronger, much stronger. Together they traveled along the Nile. They visited temples. They explored ancient monuments. They discussed science, politics, and philosophy. The bond between them deepened. Eventually, Cleopatra gave birth to a son. She named him Caesarion, Little Caesar. To her, he represented hope, a future, a connection between Egypt and Rome. For a time, it seemed everything was going perfectly. Cleopatra had regained her throne. Egypt was stable. Caesar was at the height of his power. The future appeared bright. But history often changes when people least expect it, and soon a storm was coming. A storm that would shake Rome. A storm that would shake Egypt. A storm that would change Cleopatra's life forever. And this next chapter is even more dramatic. It is a story of love and betrayal, a story of power and ambition, a story that ends with the fall of a kingdom and the birth of an empire. So sit back, relax, and let's continue our journey into the fascinating life of Cleopatra. The Nile River flowed peacefully beneath the golden Egyptian sun. The war was over. The enemies who had driven Cleopatra from her throne were gone. For the first time in years, Egypt was calm. The people returned to their daily lives. Farmers worked in the fields. Merchants filled the markets. Ships carried goods across the Mediterranean Sea. And in the royal palace, Cleopatra began rebuilding her kingdom. But her relationship with Julius Caesar continued to grow. The Roman leader was fascinated by Egypt. He admired its ancient history. He admired its monuments. And most of all, he admired Cleopatra. She was unlike anyone he had ever met. She was intelligent enough to discuss politics, educated enough to discuss philosophy, confident enough to challenge his ideas. Many people were afraid of Julius Caesar. Cleopatra was not. She spoke to him as an equal, and Caesar respected that. Together they traveled along the Nile. Their royal boats moved slowly through the water while servant soldiers followed behind. They visited magnificent temples. They watched sunsets over the desert. They talked for hours about the future. For Cleopatra, these moments were important. She believed Egypt finally had a powerful protector. Rome was the strongest force in the world. And Julius Caesar stood at the center of Roman power. If he remained her ally, Egypt might stay independent. It might remain free. It might survive. Then came the birth of her son. The baby boy was named Caesarion, Little Caesar. Cleopatra proudly declared that Julius Caesar was the father. Whether Caesar publicly accepted this or not remains a mystery. But Cleopatra believed the child would play an important role in the future. She imagined him one day ruling a great kingdom, perhaps even uniting Egypt and Rome, perhaps becoming one of the most powerful men in history. The dreams of mothers are often beautiful, but history rarely follows our dreams. A few years later, Cleopatra made a bold decision. She traveled to Rome, the heart of the Roman world, the city where Caesar ruled, the city where senators debated laws, the city where millions looked toward the future. When Cleopatra arrived, people stared. Some admired her, some feared her, others hated her immediately. She was exotic, she was wealthy, she was powerful. Most importantly, she was foreign. Many Romans did not trust foreign rulers, especially not one as influential as Cleopatra. Rumors spread quickly. People whispered about her in crowded markets. They discussed her in public squares. Some said she had enchanted Caesar. Others claimed she wanted to control Rome itself. The truth mattered less than the stories. And the stories grew bigger every day. Meanwhile, Caesar's power continued increasing. He won victories, he gained support. He became more influential than any Roman before him. Many people admired him. Many people feared him. The Roman Republic had existed for centuries. Its citizens hated kings. Yet some senators worried Caesar wanted exactly that. A crown, absolute power, a throne. The tension inside Rome became dangerous. Enemies gathered in secret. Plans were made behind closed doors. Whispers filled dark corridors. The storm was coming. And then it happened. March 15, 44 BC. A date remembered forever. The morning began normally. Caesar prepared for a meeting of the Senate. Friends greeted him. Supporters followed him. Nobody could see the danger hiding nearby. As Caesar entered the Senate chamber, the conspirators moved into position. They surrounded him. For a brief moment, everything seemed normal. Then suddenly a knife appeared. Then another. Then another. The senator tapped. Blades flashed through the air. Caesar fought back, but there were too many. One wound became 10. 10 became 20. Blood covered the floor. The most powerful man in the world collapsed, and Julius Caesar died. Rome erupted into chaos. People screamed in the streets. Crowds gathered everywhere. Nobody knew what would happen next. For Cleopatra, the news was devastating. Her protector was gone. Her ally was gone. The future she imagined vanished in a single day. Worse still, she was in danger. Political violence was spreading. Nobody knew who would gain power. Nobody knew who could be trusted. Without wasting time, Cleopatra gathered her son and returned to Egypt. She understood something important. Rome was entering another civil war, and Egypt needed stability. Back in Alexandria, she focused on governing her kingdom, but she watched Rome carefully, because the struggle for power there would eventually affect Egypt, and she was right. After Caesar's death, several powerful men fought to control Rome. Among them was a brilliant young politician named Octavian. Another was a famous general named Mark Antony. Both had been connected to Caesar. Both wanted power. Both believed they could shape Rome's future. Years of conflict followed. Battles were fought. Alliances were formed. Enemies were defeated. Eventually, Octavian and Mark Antony emerged victorious. Together they controlled Rome. Together they divided the Roman world. Octavian ruled the west. Mark Antony ruled the east. And since Egypt was in the east, Antony's attention soon turned toward Cleopatra. At first, their relationship was political. Antony needed resources. He needed money. He needed support for his military campaigns. Egypt possessed enormous wealth. Its farms fed nations. Its treasury contained vast riches. Antony summoned Cleopatra to meet him in the city of Tarsus. Cleopatra understood the importance of this meeting. She remembered how first impressions influenced powerful men, and she intended to make this meeting unforgettable. When the day arrived, the people of Tarsus gathered near the river. They had heard rumors. They wanted to see the famous Queen of Egypt. Then they saw her ship. It was magnificent. Purple sails caught the wind. Silver oars flashed beneath the sunlight. Perfume drifted through the air. Musicians played beautiful music. Golden decorations sparkled everywhere. And at the center stood Cleopatra, elegant, confident, regal. She looked less like a queen and more like a goddess. The crowd stared in amazement, and so did Mark Antony. From the moment they met, something powerful connected them. Perhaps it was love. Perhaps it was ambition. Perhaps it was both. Whatever the reason, their lives soon became intertwined. Antony admired Cleopatra's intelligence, her wit, her confidence. Cleopatra admired Antony's strength, his courage, his charisma. Together they formed one of history's most famous relationships. Months became years. Their bond deepened. They spent time in Egypt. They celebrated victories. They planned for the future. Eventually, they had children together. Twins first. A son and a daughter. Later, another son followed. For Cleopatra, these children represented hope. For Antony, they represented family. But not everyone celebrated their happiness. Far away in Rome, Octavian watched carefully, and he saw an opportunity. Octavian was ambitious, extremely ambitious. He wanted complete control of Rome. As long as Antony remained powerful, that goal remained impossible. So Octavian began a campaign, not with swords, not with armies, with words. He spread stories. He told Romans that Antony had abandoned his homeland. He claimed Antony cared more about Cleopatra than Rome. He suggested that Egypt was influencing Roman politics. Day after day, the message spread. Many Romans believed it. Antony's reputation suffered. Public opinion turned against him. The conflict between Antony and Octavian grew worse. Eventually, war became unavoidable. The final confrontation approached. Both sides gathered enormous armies. Both sides prepared massive fleets. Both sides knew history would be decided by the outcome. In 31 BC, the decisive battle arrived. The location was Actium, a strategic point near the western coast of Greece. The sea was crowded with warships. Hundreds of vessels filled the horizon. Thousands of soldiers prepared for combat. The fate of nations rested on what would happen next. The battle began. Ships crashed together. Arrows darkened the sky. Soldiers fought fiercely. For hours, neither side gained a clear advantage. Then slowly the situation changed. Octavian's commanders made better decisions. Their ships moved more effectively. Their strategy worked. Antony's forces began losing ground. The battle turned against them. Cleopatra watched the fighting from her own fleet. She understood the danger. If they lost, everything would be lost. Her kingdom, her children, her future. Suddenly, her ships turned away. They began sailing from the battlefield. Historians still debate why. Some believe she panicked. Others believe she followed a planned strategy. Nobody knows for certain. What we do know is this. When Antony saw Cleopatra leaving, he followed her. He abandoned the battle. His remaining forces were left behind. Confusion spread. Morale collapsed. The fleet disintegrated, and Octavian won. It was a catastrophic defeat. One of the most important defeats in ancient history. Antony and Cleopatra returned to Egypt, but they knew the truth. Octavian would come. Sooner or later, he would arrive, and when he did, he would bring the full power of Rome. The following months were filled with anxiety. Cleopatra searched for allies. None came. Antony tried rebuilding his military strength. It wasn't enough. The world had already chosen a side, and that side was Octavian. Eventually, the Roman army marched into Egypt. Resistance collapsed quickly. Another battle was fought. Another defeat followed. The end was near. Inside Alexandria, fear spread through the palace. Servants whispered. Officials worried. Everyone knew what was coming. Then tragedy struck. A false rumor reached Antony. Someone told him Cleopatra was dead. The news shattered him. He believed the woman he loved was gone. Broken by grief, he made a terrible decision. He took his sword, and he stabbed himself. The wound was fatal. But moments later, the truth emerged. Cleopatra was alive. The rumor had been wrong. Servants rushed the dying Antony to Cleopatra. She held him in her arms. The great Roman general looked into her eyes one final time. Then he died. The man who had commanded armies. The man who had ruled half the Roman world. The man who had loved Cleopatra was gone. Cleopatra was alone. Soon afterward, Octavian entered Alexandria. The city surrendered. Egypt surrendered. The final chapter had begun. Octavian treated Cleopatra respectfully, at least on the surface. He understood her importance. He understood her fame. But he also understood her value as a political symbol. He intended to bring her to Rome. He intended to display her in a victory parade. A defeated queen, a conquered ruler, proof of his triumph. For Cleopatra, this fate was unbearable. She had been a queen all her life. She had ruled nations, negotiated with emperors, commanded respect. She would not spend the rest of her life as a prisoner. She would not become a trophy. She would not allow others to decide her ending. So she made her final choice. On August 12, 30 BC, Cleopatra died. She was 39 years old. The exact details remain uncertain. Some ancient writers claimed an asp, a poisonous snake, bit her. Others believed she used poison. The truth may never be known. But one thing is certain. She chose her own fate. She refused to surrender her dignity. She refused to let Octavian write the final chapter of her life. With Cleopatra's death, an era ended. Egypt lost its independence. The kingdom that had existed for thousands of years became part of Rome. Octavian gained complete control. Years later, he became known as Augustus, the first Roman emperor. His reign marked the beginning of a new age. Yet even as Rome celebrated victory, something remarkable happened. People continued talking about Cleopatra. Years passed, then decades, then centuries. Still, her name survived. Why? Because she was unforgettable. Many rulers conquered land. Many rulers commanded armies. Many rulers accumulated wealth. But few possessed the combination of intelligence, courage, ambition, and charisma that Cleopatra displayed. She was not perfect. No human being is. She made mistakes. She took risks. Some decisions brought disaster. Others brought success. But she never stopped fighting. She never stopped believing in herself, even when surrounded by enemies, even when facing impossible odds, even when the most powerful empire in the world stood against her. Today, more than 2,000 years later, people still study her life. Books are written about her. Movies are made about her. Historians continue debating her decisions. Her story remains alive, and perhaps that is her greatest victory, because kingdoms can disappear, palaces can crumble, empires can fall. But a powerful story can live forever. Cleopatra's story reminds us that intelligence matters, learning matters, knowledge matters. She understood the power of education. She learned languages. She studied history. She developed her mind. And those skills helped her rise above countless challenges. As English learners, we can learn something from her journey. Every new word we learn makes us stronger. Every book we read expands our world. Every story teaches us something valuable. Learning is a kind of power. A power that nobody can take away. Just as Cleopatra used language to connect with people from different cultures, we use English to connect with the world around us. And that is a beautiful thing. Thank you, my friends, for joining me on this incredible journey through the life of Cleopatra. I hope you enjoyed this story. I hope it helped you improve your English listening skills. And I hope it inspired you to keep learning, keep growing, and keep believing in the power of knowledge. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video and share it with someone who loves history and inspiring stories. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Storyline English for more amazing stories that help you learn English in a simple and enjoyable way. Leave a comment below and tell us which historical figure you would like to hear about next. Until next time, my friends, keep learning, keep listening, keep dreaming, and keep enjoying the beautiful journey of English. See you in the next story.